Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 195 of the Civil Gore Podcast. I'm your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And we did I don't know if it's a first, because I know we've had them, like last summer we had a couple of bonus episodes here and there, but I don't know if we ever actually split a summer SLAYCATION into two, but we felt we had to because we had such two great interviews. So it's been actually, I mean, with you guys listening to it only sounds like a little bit of a time, it's only skipped a week, but I feel like we recorded the Evil Dead Part 1 like a month ago.
I know, well, and we're recording this part really late in the week because I've had a time. I'm not going to go into the whole story, but I've had a lot of issues with my moving into the new house and just trying to get closed on the house. And then my internet got cut off a week early due to an error on the internet provider's part.
Oh yeah, so, that's a story you need to like. As we'll borrow a phrase from our buddies Kim and Kedge. What would they say? Like put a pin in it.
Yeah,
like
put a pin in it because I lost internet. So we can't record without internet because Brian and I record over Skype and or communicate over Skype. So it's been a lot, and it's been a lot of stress. And there's been nights where I just don't want to record and I don't want to do anything because I'm so angry and stuff at the whole house process. So it's been a bit of a nightmare. But anyway, we had to get this show out. We had to because I'm really excited to get to Puppet Master, honestly. Cause
same here. I kind of started it a little bit, so we're already in there. But I think this is appropriate this week because it's about a guy. Think about it. I mean, the Evil Dead series started with a guy who literally is going insane because of a house.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
So, how appropriate, Tim. Actually, we should have like scrapped it and did House 1 and 2. Right.
I know. Yeah.
But but this will be good. We'll be able to finish off Evil Dead 2 and jump right into Puppet Master, which I have to. As a little spoiler alert preview for that, like I forgot how much I enjoyed the first one till I rewatched it. Yeah. So I'm actually even more excited for this series now than I was after watching the first one so far to get a head start. And this should be. I think we'll have an absolute ball going through the Puppet Master because it's so diverse. It just goes, but yet it's still all connected, unlike Hellraiser.
Yeah. At least because at least they have like a consistent vision behind them. Somewhat. Yeah. We'll get into how it goes on because obviously there are some twists and turns there in that franchise, but it's not like they took movies that weren't Puppet Master movies and then tried to force Puppet Master into them like they did with Hellraiser.
Like they didn't take Gone with the Wind script and then all of a sudden put like a blade in there. Yeah. So,
oh man, I love it. We shouldn't be talking about Puppet Master during our Evil
I know
Dead
we're
interview.
Already like jumping ahead. Poor Evil Dead. It's really getting the shaft. I gotta tell you.
But one of my dreams is to have a life-size Blade replica, and they sell them. They have them, but they're expensive, very expensive. Yeah. I would love to have one of those. All right, well, let's get into Evil Dead 2. And
you made Part 2.
Yeah, Evil Dead Part 2. Let's get into Army of Darkness. Forgive me. See, I told you we've been rusty.
Yeah.
Army of Darkness from 1992, directed, of course, by Sam Raimi, starring the great Bruce Campbell as Ash, Emmett Davids as Sheila, Marcus Gilbert as Lord Arthur, Ian Abercrombie as Wiseman, Richard Grove.
You know who that is, right?
Ian Abercrombie?
Yeah, he's Mr. Pitt from Seinfeld.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Richard Grove as Duke Henry the Red, Timothy Patrick Quill as the Blacksmith, Michael Earl Reed as Goldtooth, Bridget Fonda as Linda, Patricia Tallman as the Possessed Witch, Ted Raimi as Cowardly Warrior, had to throw him in there, and of course Bill Moseley as the Deadite Captain. A sardonic hardware store clerk is accidentally transported to 1300 AD, where he must retrieve the Necronomicon and battle an army of the dead so he can return home. So, of course, at the end of Evil Dead 2, and this is something funny because there was such a long... Remember I told you I saw Army of Darkness before I saw the other Evil Deads, I believe. Yeah. So I didn't realize until like much later that Evil Dead 2 had a direct... Like, the end of Evil Dead 2 is basically the direct intro into Army of Darkness. Like, it just had not been made yet. So I didn't even realize that. It was funny watching these back all in order, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot. I totally forgot that the end of Evil Dead 2, like, directly ties into this movie. But so my history with Army of Darkness is kind of crazy because, like I said, I wasn't very familiar with the Evil Dead movies. This one came out in 1992, which was my junior year of high school, dating myself. But so I had a good friend, and I remember me and him used to watch this all the time. Or we went and saw it in the theater, and then later we continued being friends throughout college. So we used to watch this movie all the time in college. That was on constant rotation. That, along with Happy Gilmore, Young Frankenstein. There's probably a few others in there, but Army of Darkness was also always on rotation, and mainly because it's got so many great quotes in it. And we were all a bunch of movie quoters. And this one, man, this is where the character of Ash really becomes what we know today. Because
just like another franchise. Think about it, like when Nightmare on Elm Street, because it was really the third one, whereas he really started with the
wisecracks,
the wisecracks. Where Freddy became Freddy. Because remember, he was really like kind of one note in the first one, and then he became like a little oddball in the second one. Like there was a hint of like the more of a character, but in the third one he started becoming with the with the puns and the stuff. So it's kind of funny that Ash also developed in the third one to like what he really was.
And it's sort of like what Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 did, where it just goes complete like off the walls crazy towards comedy.
Maybe you need Bill Moseley in it to do that. I think maybe that's the secret.
That's the thread. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, so this is a straight up. I mean, if Evil Dead 2 is a horror comedy, this is like Army of Darkness is like horror lowercase, comedy uppercase. Like it's way heavy on the comedy, and it was kind of funny watching it back because we always say that when we're watching these franchises together, it's interesting how your perception of the movies change when you're watching them very close together versus over periods of years. And I always loved Army of Darkness, but I never thought of it as tonally so different from the other Evil Deads, because remember, I watched it all out of order and everything, and I watched this over periods of years and stuff. But when you watch them back to back, you've got Evil Dead, which is pretty much straight horror. It's a little over the top. The humor might come from the over top, but there's not really any like intentional comedy. Evil Dead 2 is like a kind of a mix of horror comedy, but then Army of Darkness is like super comedic. And watching all three of those like back to back, you see like how big a jump it takes into the comedy side of things. And that I wasn't quite prepared for that, because in my mind, I didn't see it as maybe just as a straight comedy. I still saw some of the horror aspects of it too.
Well, yeah, what I always found fascinating too, and this goes through my own little history of Evil Dead as well. So I really like, I think I had seen it, back on cable first of all, and then but I really got to know it more when I met Paul, my friend Paul, in California, and he was like, oh, you got, we were talking about all this different horror stuff, and so he really got me back into and then I started remembering it. So we would watch Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. And when we knew Army of Darkness was coming out, we were so excited, because we're like, oh, wow, that's like a third one. But, I'm still thinking now, because if you look at it, right, Evil Dead, first one, it's like totally like almost like essentially a low budget indie horror film, right? Mm-hmm. Second one became like kind of elevated it to a classic B horror film, B movie horror film.
Not crazy budget, but not super low budget. Yeah.
But better, better than the original, which was like shoestring and everything you could possibly find a way to not spend money they've done, right? Then you get the third one, and that kind of took it. And I know many people may question this, but it became a blockbuster level. And here's why I'll say that, because back when, in California, when we were, when I was there at the time and this came out, there was this, and I ended up working for the company too. It was, Sayufi was the main company, but it was known as the Century Theaters. And they were these domed, kind of these dome theaters. And there was they were all different ones. There was like, the one I worked at was the, and I think it was originally the 12, and it became a 16 by the time I was when I started working there. But anyway, the ones locally was like the Century 22, 23, 24, 25. 22 was like the big one, and they were all in a line right by the Winchester Mystery House. It was kind of a cool thing. It's all gone now. All those are gone now, as far as I know. I don't think any of them. And I thought that one was historical, so I don't know if they're all gone, but they were replaced by this giant, massive complex of shopping and restaurants and residence things called Santana Row. Anyway, so Century 22 was always where the blockbuster would come out. And it would and that level, and then usually the AMCs at that point, or whatever the AMC equivalent to the UA theaters, would always get the second tier movies. But even in the Centuries had this hierarchy over there because they were not multiplexes. They were just 22 had, I think, 2 or 4 theaters tops in it, maybe even 2 or something. I gotta remember. Paul probably fact check me on this. Hopefully he'll tell me. But it was 22 was the big ones, and 23 and 24 had the second tier movies. And I remember, I don't know if Paul remembers this. I gotta talk to him. I haven't talked to him in a while. I gotta find out if he remembers this. He was telling me, he was like, I bet it'll come out in the 22. I'm like, hell no. I said, this is Evil Dead. This is going to be lucky if it hits the Century theaters. And that was before, you got to remember, this is before you had online ticketing, and you couldn't order tickets. You literally went the day of to get the tickets.
Yeah.
So we didn't know until you literally looked at the newspaper the next morning to see where it was playing. That's the level of, of where we were at this point. And I still remember opening up the page, and it was almost a full page ad, the giant poster of, Ash standing there, that classic art work of that movie. Post said, playing today, Century 22. And I'm like, damn it, Paul was right. I was stunned because I'm like, I'm thinking Evil Dead 1 and 2, and those are not movies that would be headlining at the premiere screen at any movie theater.
Right.
This was, because I think he was given a big budget. He was it was marketed well. I mean, maybe when it came out too, it had the advantage of not being out with other big movies, but I remember seeing a lot of promotion for this. And this was marketed as a big budget action adventure comedy more than really a horror. But the horror fans were eagerly anticipating this and knew what they were getting. And I actually, when I first saw it, I remember I was almost disappointed. It's not the word, but more just as much as I loved it, I was just wow, this seems so different from Evil Dead. It's they almost and this is not a knock. I can think of a better word, but they sanitized it in a way to make it more mainstream. But it was fine because it worked, because it was still great, and it's still, it's a lot of people. There's still, it's almost the there's the people that are Star Wars fans, and to them, the prequels were their movies growing up. Some, the younger generation, at this age, will say that the sequels, were the ones that the sequel trilogy was the one that was their Star Wars. Obviously ours is the original 3, but 4, 5, and 6. But so to me, it's my Evil Dead was 1 and 2, and this one's a brand new, almost like you said, it's seems so far removed, even though it's literally a direct sequel. Minutes after the last one, it literally takes place minutes after the second one ended in some way, and obviously they replayed it, and they, in the second one, they did that little thing where they reshot the way that, he landed the whole thing, but still, it's interesting to take a franchise, like you said, you get 3 tonally different movies that all work so well together when you watch them as a whole to create this character and create this universe. And it is you could literally watch all 3 movies separately and still get something out of them. You could watch Army of Darkness and be fine without seeing the previous 2.
Well, I did. I mean, that's what I'm saying, because they had always marketed this to stand on its own. I think I didn't even know, like I said, when I first watched Army of Darkness, I didn't even know what Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 were. And I still enjoyed it, and I loved it, and I watched the film all the time, even not really knowing what was going on, because they had done such a good job of making it a standalone film. But when you're going back about talking about it being on the big screen, you have to remember that Sam Raimi had done Darkman in 2 years prior, and that was, I believe, was a fairly big hit. think at the time that it came out, because I know it was a critical success when it came out. So he already had he had some cred at that point for a bigger budget film. So I'm sure that kind of also gave the studio incentive to really promote this, because they had a good director at the helm that was kind of popular at the time.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, you can we've seen this before. An amazing movie could be marketed poorly,
right?
And it just kills it. And and then then you discover it years later. You're like, oh, this is what. I really like this, but that's not what it looked like when they were marketing it. So I mean, that's why marketing people get paid the big bucks. It's like you just can't walk in and say, I think I'm going to market today. I'm going to be a marketer. No, you need to have a skill. And you need to take the movie and you need to know what kind of audience you're trying to get and at what time it is and what climate's going on in the world, and you need to have that to perfection, or you could literally lose millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So it's tough. They marketed this great because they managed to get everybody. They got the people that never saw it before, the people that just say, oh, what's playing today, honey? And then the Evil Dead fans. So this was marketed well. This was smart. They did it all right. I mean, they had the right group behind it. You had Dino De Laurentiis behind this. You had, even Bruce Campbell was a co-producer on this thing, which is great. But if you think about it, Bruce Campbell wasn't known for anything at this point, was he? Other than Evil Dead? I know he was little bits.
He had done. Okay, so I was looking at his IMDb. So he had a little part in Maniac Cop 2, a little part in Darkman. Right. I mean, he had little parts, but not nothing major since Evil Dead 2.
But think about it. The marketing for this was a giant version of him standing there. They marketed it as if you should know this character.
Right,
Yet
yeah.
They made the film as if you didn't know it, because you could learn about it. All you needed to know in Ash was delivered in the first 10 minutes of that movie. And you were in whether you watched the first two Evil Dead or not. And that is what the brilliance of this movie is. There's just and it was, again, it goes into marketing, it goes into plan, it was the way it was written, directed. The whole package was put together so well with this. And that's why I think a lot of people, you'll see in our rankings where it lies, but there's a reason for that, but not per the movie itself, because the movie overall is great. And I have one version on Blu-ray, but I have which is the Screwhead version on Blu-ray, but I got 6 versions of this thing on DVD. Every time they came out with the bootleg cut, this cut, there's 20 cuts of this movie supposedly out there.
Yeah, I want to see the fan cut that they did all 3 Evil Dead films cut into one movie.
Oh, that'd be fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun. But yeah. Also, I mean, credit to Bruce Campbell for being able to pull that off. I mean, to take a character that maybe not everybody knew at the time and instantly bring you up to speed. Because I'm telling you, I bet if he walked in a room, you would know instantly what kind of guy he is. He just has this swagger to him, and he basically is Ash. I mean, even every time I've seen him, and maybe that's partly a show or whatever, but he almost seems like Ash all the time.
Yeah.
Even outside of his movies.
I mean, just from everything. Remember that amazing documentary we saw on the Evil Dead fans?
Yeah.
That, by the way, that documentary, I recommend that for everyone. Was it Hail to the Deadites, right?
Yeah, Hail to the Deadites. Go check that out.
Track that down, everybody. That document, we got to see that as part of the festival. I know we talked about it, but if you were a fan of Evil Dead, but in all honesty, just any movie franchise that you're a fan of, you got to see this, because you'll get it. Even if you're not an Evil Dead fan, you'll relate to this film, because you'll see what it means to them and what they've done to it. I mean, literally, they had that one guy, remember he married the couple.
Yeah.
You find that they got divorced later on. That's sad.
Spoiler alert.
But yeah, spoiler alert. But the thing is that, and it's great. And, you hear about they talk about Bruce Campbell, and through all fans that I know who've met him, and everyone that has met him, I haven't heard one inkling of even remotely of an unpleasant experience with him. It's he's just one of those people that everybody loves who meets him or knows him. So it's that says something, and that comes across with Ash, because if you think about it, Ash is kind of a dick.
Yeah, but it's a lovable dick.
It's like that. Like a perfect example is that, and it's funny because it was on today. It was American Reunion where they go when Stifler tells him, he goes, "Yeah, you think I'm a dick," and he goes, Yeah, you are a dick, but you're a fun dick.
Yeah.
And you're our dick. You know, and it's like,
exactly.
that's what it is. Ash is, if you look at his character, he's especially in this one, he's like, he's a womanizer. He's brash. He's really like granted, he's been through a lot at this point. He started off as a very nice guy, calm guy in the thing, but the Ash that we know and love now is kind of a dick. But he's ours. We love him, and we love the character, and we've all the fans have embraced him. And they know that, what? Who cares what he does? He's entertaining us.
Well, that's one thing I really liked about Ash vs. Evil Dead is because
I still need to see the rest of that.
Yeah, you need to see it because they took the Ash character and just because it's so many years later and he's obviously older, but he's still Ash. So I love the way they play with the Ash personality having to adjust to being old. And that's like where a lot of the comedy and stuff comes in for Ash vs. Evil Dead is really brilliant. The way they took the reality of many, many years having passed between his last outing in Army of Darkness and Ash vs. Evil Dead, and they incorporated that into the story and into the character. And it just makes it's almost like, how we see Ash's evolution from Evil Dead through Army of Darkness. We see that evolution, and Ash vs. Evil Dead you get to see the further evolution of Ash many years later. It's like almost like I love it because it's almost like a completion of the story arc, kind of. He doesn't just stop at his peak. You get to see what happens when like a hero goes over the hill a little bit. I thought it was really, really fun.
Yeah, and I gotta get this on Blu-ray too. Right now, Amazon has it, the complete series, all 3 seasons, $40, and it comes with all the digital copies too.
Yeah, there you go. It's a great series. Now, I will say,
so I might need to pick that up. I'll pick that up next
season
week.
2 was not as great. I loved season 1. Season 2 was it was good, but it wasn't as good. And then season 3 they wrapped it back up really strong. So not that all the seasons are. I loved all of it, but I will say I thought season 2 was the weakest of the 3. The one thing I want to talk about in this movie was the special effects, because I remember they have to have done some remastering of this film, because I remember watching this ages ago on DVD back in the late 90s and remembering, oh my God, the stop motion skeletons are so cheesy and how bad these effects are. And I mean, not bad. I mean, they're kind of charming in their own way, but you know what I mean? They weren't.
Yeah.
And
they were noticeable.
But when I watched it back, I was like surprised, because I was just cringing, kind of waiting for the cheesy stop motion stuff. And it actually was really pretty darn good. And I'm wondering if they had to have done some remastering and cleanup of like the green screen, and they had to have, because it looks so much better.
Yeah.
I noticed that again in Willow, because Willow, I remember the stop motion effects looked really bad on DVD and VHS, but when I watched it the most recently, which was maybe a year or so ago, it actually looked pretty decent. And I was like, they've done something. They haven't changed the effect. I mean, they haven't CGI'd the effect or anything, but they've cleaned it up somehow. And it looks
I watched
way
it
better
on Blu-ray, so my copy was really clear. And I actually know, it's funny you said that, because I noticed that too. I'm like, for some reason I remember the effects being like much more noticeable as stop motion, but there were some sequences where, I mean, I know probably there were certain sequences where it wasn't stop motion. It was a costumed thing,
right.
But there was definitely like some of that, like there was that one scene where they're all marching towards, and I'm like, wow, that actually looks really good. And I know that it was done stop motion, but you have to really look. And I'm like, wow, you know what? This is looked a lot better than I remember it being.
I didn't have time to go research it, but if anybody out there knows for sure they had to have done something, because it looks way better than I remember. And
they do a lot of like little things on Blu-ray things. I remember like when Phantom Menace came out on back on DVD alone before even Blu-ray, they had switched the Yoda, because I don't know if you remember how puppety
he looked
Yoda
bad.
looked.
Yeah, he looked really
remember
bad.
He looked really like, I mean, and like, I know they wanted to make him look like a puppety, but like they had to fix him because remember how drastically different he started to look in the other prequels when he was all CGI.
Yeah.
It just didn't work. Yeah, you can use a puppet Yoda when he's like hunched over and crawling, but he's moving around in these prequels.
They've never been able to get Yoda right. In my mind, like they have never been able to get, even in the prequels, none of it have they gotten him exactly right. That like he
actually
wasn't.
The sequel, I thought he looked really good. In Last Jedi when he appeared in the ghost form, I thought
that's
was
the best
well
he's looked. It's not perfect, but it's the best
Yeah.
he's looked. But yeah.
Would you remember how bad? I don't know if you remember how when the special editions of Star Wars came out.
Oh God, yeah.
How bad Jabba looked.
Oh, it was horrible. Yeah.
And where Han Solo like stepped on his toe because they had to make it because remember it was a human originally that scene and I'm like, oh my God, it looks terrible. And then when they remastered it for home release, it looked a little better. But even they did it again. I think they touched up a third time when it came out to Blu-ray, and now it looks normal enough to where you can like, all right, I get it.
Yeah.
But they tweaked that whole cancer between the Han Greedo
moments
moments
that
they fiddled around with. But I have to say though, in Phantom Menace, Jabba looked amazing, like in the sequence. But that whole movie was all CG. But like the Jabba there looked great. So I mean, things. Yes, when you're remastering it for a new format, there's always cleanups. It's not always documented. It's like sometimes they'll like. I mean, Star Wars, everyone will know if you change a frame, someone will notice it. I'm not gonna lie, I probably noticed. I've noticed like the slightest of changes, like of musical cues, but only because I've seen them a billion times. But so I bet you they did something. They cleaned it up. They cleaned it up where they could. I mean,
but it
why
looked
not?
good. I mean, I was really impressed with it. I was taking notes in my mind for the show about it's got the stop motion and this has to be at 92. That had to be like one of the last. This has to be like one of the last stop motion use of stop motion in a film, because that's right when CGI was really starting to take off. I mean, I can't.
Well,
imagine.
yeah, at least the intentional one. Like they may have done some around now. Like if they wanted to purposely get that feel of.
Oh yeah, well movies have started to go back retro and do things, but I mean, like as far as like using it as a mainstream, like there's no way they would have done Army of Darkness with stop motion if it had been come out 10 years later.
Oh my God, no! The budget would have been a balloon to like about 6 times what it was. But see, and actually, to bring that up, what I think what's cool about that is it does bring. While tonally it's much different, it does bring the spirit still of the originals.
Well, not only that, but my favorite stop motion of all time was the old Ray Harryhausen stuff, and he had he had stop motion skeletons. That was stop motion skeletons are my favorite thing of all time, stop motion wise. Like if there's a monster that I want to see in stop motion, it's going to be either a skeleton or Medusa from Clash of the Titans. That's my two. But I love stop motion skeletons, and so I loved the Army of Darkness stuff just because of that, because it reminded me of the old Jason and the Argonauts and all Seven Voyages of Sinbad, all those movies like that. I loved those as a kid, so I instantly fell in love with the stop motion of this. And I will say too, I thought the skeleton costumes are kind of brilliant for like when they have the shots where it's like the whole army marching and it's obviously people, but they did some kind of like skeleton. The costumes were very creative in how they made them look skeletal, even though they were just people marching around.
And what's funny? So it brought me back to something actually with this whole thing. CGI was actually used well before this, because remember there was young Sherlock Holmes was like that big scene, where the night came through. And so I was like, and I was just looking it up, and that was 85. So they had the technology they could have used if they wanted to. Yeah. It's just, so I mean, it was a choice. Like, they're probably like, okay, well, we can only, we don't want to maybe, really blow our budget on this thing. We'll make it as big budget as we can, but kind of do the thing. Because I think about it, that was 85, Young Sherlock. That was a great movie, by the way, on its own.
Yeah, and I'm sure Sam Raimi wanted to keep some spirit of the original movies alive too, because they used
right, and that's what I loved.
Yeah.
That's where it's like, so whether or not, like, I mean, if it was a 100% intentional choice, or it was like, like, well, let's see, we can either do this, or we can, maybe we'll cut it out. But like, whatever he did is like, he found ways to make it still epic in scale with the older technology, which is pretty damn good, I thought. So
yeah. So anyway, we like I said, we watched the heck out of this in high school and college. I had not actually seen it in a while. I watched it. Oh gosh, it probably been several years until I watched it for the podcast that I had seen it. Like I said, I'm not one to watch movies, even some of my favorite movies, necessarily over and over and over. I tend to watch them repeatedly, but over a period of years. So I had not seen this one in a while, and it was a lot of fun to go back to it. But like I said, it was more slapstick comedy than I even remembered, because I think I remember mostly the quotes from it, because I still quote things from it. And that's what our friends used to always quote stuff all the time. So in my mind, I was thinking more of the dialogue humor, but it really is. It's like a cartoon. I mean, there's some like really like straight out of Warner Brothers cartoons moments, slapstick comedy in this one, and that will come into play later on in our rankings, I'll say.
Yeah. But I mean, do you want to? Do we do trivia at all in this? I mean, like, I feel like some of these things, it's like with the trivia with these summer SLAYCATIONs, it's like there's so many that we like. Yeah,
because they're big franchises, so they always have a ton of trivia. I mean, this one, there's so much here. I don't even know if I would even be able to.
Yeah, I don't know where
you begin. But if you go out to IMDb, there's some great trivia on this movie, so go check it out. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Well, that might be the better way to do it on some of these, and also because think about it, like, for like next week we're gonna have three movies each time, and it's like it becomes like, I think it becomes tedious.
Yeah.
Especially because if there's anything ever like really amazing, we'll definitely make sure we point it out. But a lot of this stuff I think is pretty much,
well, especially since you guys can go out there and read it.
It's not like we're getting this from like our files of Sam Raimi or anything.
Yeah, and we'll still do trivia for like the regular episodes. It's just with the SLAYCATIONs. You're talking about such classic films. This is just like, it's like pages and pages of trivia. So let's talk about Evil Dead from 2013. This one was directed by, oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher his name. I'm sorry. Fede Alvarez, maybe?
For some reason, I kept adding an R to it and calling him Freddy Alvarez the whole time.
Oh, okay.
For some reason. I don't know why, but I like it. So there's a mental block where you like see something, and for some reason you can't, like, once you see it, you can't see it. For some reason, I don't know why. So, I like imagine this R in there for Freddy, and then I can't get it out.
This also has Jane Levy as Mia, Shiloh Fernandez as David, Lou Taylor Pucci as Eric, Jessica Lucas as Olivia, Elizabeth Blackmore as Natalie, Phoenix Connolly as a teenager, and Jim McLarty as Harold. 5 friends head to a remote cabin where the discovery of a Book of the Dead leads them to unwittingly summon up demons living in the nearby woods. So I remember when this remake was announced, and people were up in arms because how dare they remake The Evil Dead, especially without Sam Raimi, and then we find out without Bruce Campbell. But it wouldn't be a remake if you had Bruce Campbell. It would just be a sequel to Army of Darkness. Because, why not? But I never really had a big like preset hatred for this remake, and I think it was because by the time I really read about it, I knew they were not recasting the Ash character, and it wasn't going to be about Ash. It was going to be a whole different storyline, and I was okay with that because the Evil Dead we know and love is all about Ash. It's all centered around him. So I wasn't really necessarily opposed to an Evil Dead movie that just kind of took place in maybe almost in like a parallel universe where Ash didn't exist and they could just kind of reinvent it. And I remember after watching it, I was pretty pleasantly surprised with it. I actually really liked it. It was very gory, very, very much more. I was an Evil Dead fan. I was expecting the same kind of brand of horror comedy, and this is not at all.
No
pure horror, no comedy.
Pretty much
very dark, very bleak. And I will say, watching it back for the podcast, I did not remember much about it. I remembered liking it, but I couldn't tell you a bunch of details or how it really differed and all this because it'd been oh gosh, it probably had been since 2013 since I watched it. And man, this was this was not a good double feature with Army of Darkness. I'm gonna just go right out and say
it. Totally different there.
I watched Evil Dead 1 and 2 back to back for our first part, and then I watched Army of Darkness and Evil Dead the remake back to back for this part, and it was such a mind twist going from the goofiness, the cartoonishness of Army of Darkness to this, which is like super bleak, super serious, super horror. It really like it was kind of a it really messed me up for. I was like, ugh, I don't. It's like watching two completely different things at the same time. I just couldn't handle it. But I still really, really liked it. But it was so dark and so like I watching it back. I don't feel like I liked it as much as I did back when I watched it in 2013. But not on a gosh, this is hard to explain. But I still like the film for what it is. But I don't like it as an Evil Dead movie, if that makes any sense. Like,
no, I because that's exactly the way I was gonna try and say for me too. Because you know how I always have that problem when they take a movie and you know they remake it or whatnot or put it in a franchise, use the title, you know, for the recognition of it. But here's the thing, though. So you know, what I did, you know, I did find out, you know, through when it was out, you know, like I got Sam Raimi's blessing, it got Bruce Campbell's blessing because there was no Ash in it, thank God. As I think I could tell you right now, I think if they would have actually tried to make this and recast Ash,
oh my
it would
God,
have been an unmitigated disaster.
Yes,
you can't. I'm sorry. I know everyone. You know, you hear the term everyone's replaceable. Everyone's replaceable. I'm sorry, but you cannot. There's just certain people that are so in the character that no matter how good the person is, they're just gonna. And the perfect example of this, you can go to their Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
Yep.
Jack Earl Haley, one of my favorite actors. I think he's incredible.
Yes, without a doubt. If anybody was going to say play Freddy, and they said him, and I was literally excited.
I was excited. Yeah, I was like, all right, if you can't get England,
good.
yeah.
And you're right. You couldn't. He couldn't do it.
Yeah,
and he wasn't even trying. He wasn't trying to do a Robert Englund impression. He wasn't at all. He was trying to put his own take on the character, and even then, it was horrible, terrible. Yeah,
and no fault of his own. And I feel bad because he's like maligned with this as like you know, it wasn't his fault. It wasn't, you know, it was just there was some story changes in it that made it the disaster that it was, that remake. But besides that, so it's like, so at least they went that way. And the way I look at this movie is like you said, I enjoyed it for what it is. It was a good, gory horror film with, there's characters you liked, some you didn't, the whole mix. There were people, there was some characters to root for. There was it was entertaining. There was a couple of little wink, wink, nods to the original and in jokes and all this kind of stuff in there. But the way I have to look at this movie is I look at it as someone who is a fan of the Evil Dead and wanted to just try their own take on it, but was smart about it by taking out Ash. Because, if you could take an Evil Dead and you try and remake this and you remake it with someone else's Ash, never gonna work. Just won't work. It's not going to work. So I don't care who you get instead of Bruce Campbell. I can think of a million people that you could hear and say, oh, yeah, but he would be good. But it's still, in the end, it's not Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell is Ash. He's become the character. He created that character. He developed the character along the way to be what it is. So you can't just replace him for one movie and say, here, go ahead and be Ash. It's not going to work. So at least they were smart there, and they made totally brand new characters, totally different storyline. Like, I think it did a couple things that most modern horror things now try and do, where there's this weird emotional other story going on in there.
I did like that. I thought that premise was pretty brilliant, though, that they're kind of doing this intervention for their addict friend.
No, I'm not trying to knock this particular one. I'm just saying, like, most movies now, they have to have that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at The Evil Dead, they were just going there for vacation. There was no backstory other than, hey, we're going up here. But now everything needs a backstory. So at least they came up with one that wasn't, like, stupid. It was like, it was not, and it like whether it intended to or not, but it actually gave a great reason on why to answer the question. Well, why don't you just leave? Why don't they just leave? Obviously the evil kept them there, but also it's like, the whole point was that, like, right when things started, things were off, they could have left, but no, the whole point was, no, we're staying here until she gets through this.
Well, also, I like that it established a way for them to not instantly know that it's demonic possession or something, but it gave them a reason to doubt. Yeah. So that led them to stay a little longer, because they're like, oh, no, she's just, it's the heroin withdrawals or whatever. I thought that was pretty brilliant.
Right. And remember, they said that that movie we had on Apocryphal, those guys from, that we're talking about. Remember, they said that's like that's kind of like a little bit of what they're trying to do. When someone is a flawed character, not like, I wish I say flawed, but unreliable. Character with unreliable, they're like, they're questioned, and you question their reality, even if it's all going on around you. You're so focused on the one person that you're not, they're like that, and that made it so big because they were so focused on her. They didn't see a lot of that going on. So you're right. The story they chose for that seems to have to be in all these modern horror movies, but at least they picked a really good one that fit perfect with this universe for this plot point. Yeah. Because any other person would be like, how did they not notice this going on? Or this is weird. And yeah, the funny, Julie was watching this one with me, and we both kind of said the same thing. Like, why does this guy have to read it out loud? Couldn't he just read it to himself when he's reading the book? All the problem would have been solved. Yeah. Nothing would happen, but he felt the need to read it aloud. It's like,
well, I will say there were some super creepy scenes in this one I did not remember. I remembered the girl coming out of the cellar, because that's kind of a nod to the original, but and it's super creepy. It was used heavily in the advertising, but some of the stuff like the head in the plastic bag, there was one
the bathroom sequence alone, like
there was some really like, I was sitting here watching this in the daytime, bright sunlight shining through the windows. I wasn't watching it in any kind of moody setting. And even those scenes, I was like, good gracious, like that's a really chilling, creepy scene. And it was more than one. It was 2 or 3 in there that I was really impressed. I was like, man, that's like pretty darn hair raising right there. That's really, really well done. And credit to them. This is a 2013 movie, and they were pulling off some of the creepiest stuff that's, rivaled some of the, stuff I've seen in the last year. So I'll give credit to the director. There was some really, really good stuff in here.
Yeah, and I think the cast was elevated enough up to the task, because the cast, I think they did like the only one I really knew well in it. I know Jane Levy now has become bigger, but at the time of this, the only one I really knew was Jessica Lucas. She's been, she was in Cloverfield. She's been in a bunch of other stuff. I've always thought she was really good. But, it's relatively people that I wasn't familiar with, at least, and even this time when I'm watching it now again, because I think I watched it first when I got it on Blu-ray, and then, then I watched it again now. It was, even now I'm like, okay, well, Jane Lee, I know now, but like, definitely didn't know back then. Jessica Lucas, obviously I knew, but no one else I didn't recognize in any of it. So I wasn't familiar with any of them. So, but they all, I think, were pretty much, like, I think they delivered where they needed to on it. And it could have easily been one of those things where the performances are bad in some of these sequences. It kind of takes you out. But they were, I'm not saying this is all Academy Award winning performances here, but what I'm saying is they did it to enough level to keep you invested in there without kind of taking you out of a moment.
Yeah,
oh God, that's so cheesy. We've all seen those, the modern day horror movies where there's just one performance that you're like, oh, it's like, but this, I thought the whole cast was kind of right on the same level with each other and did a good job, and they really kept it going though. And I think it's funny because I know when we get to our rankings, I think I glanced pretty quick. I think they're identical, and probably for the same reasons.
Yeah.
But it's funny because now I don't think, and if you think about it, it's again another tonally different movie. Yes, it's closer, probably if you're gonna say it's close to anything, it's to the original, but way different because of the just the dark dark amount of gore, because the original one had like this little bit of cheesiness to it.
Yeah,
it was like a little, the lesser effects made it like kind of almost like a more of a relatable kind of thing, like a cutesy little like thing, for lack of a better word. But you know what I'm saying? Like it was like there was like a couple of laughable moments because of the when Ash would go flying into the thing, and it's just because of the way the acting was and the way it was. It was more of like watching a bunch of friends make just a really great fun horror movie. But this one definitely was more of a modern day horror take on it. So it was like it still has another tonally different from the other one. So I think, when you see, I know when I go we're ranking it, it falls where it is, not so much because of its of the actual movie itself, is just more of compared to the other ones, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into our rankings, because I do want to explain myself a little bit better, because I feel like I bashed this movie, and I'm not. I want to. I don't think you did. I think you really like this remake. I just don't like it as an Evil Dead movie. If this was called anything else other than Evil Dead, it would have ranked differently.
Right.
Sure,
yeah. No. And that's again. It's always that curse of the remake.
Yeah.
Or the reimagining or something. It's like they could have just. I mean, but then what are you gonna do? I mean, what like here's the problem. It falls into that trap, because what if they just renamed it something else?
Then it's a ripoff.
Then you say, oh, what an Evil Dead ripoff.
Yeah.
Well, if we called it Evil Dead, it's like then you'd have to have so much like press on it, like, oh no, this was supposed to be a remake of the Evil Dead, but we didn't want to call it Evil Dead, and then there's that, obviously there's the last post credit scene, that where they tie it into to the original franchise as like an alternate universe of it, which kind of would make sense if you think about the way Army of Darkness is. It's like, remember, because I think there was a line even in there somewhere, right, in Army of Darkness, or was it that where if like Ash would have done something where he could have ended up in the wrong like time period anyway, or the wrong thing, and it could have been like almost like a multiverse, because they never really explored what could technically go wrong.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it makes sense. Like, I'm sure they could work. And, like, since I didn't see all of Ash vs. Evil Dead, I don't know if they ever address it in that. But, you don't know really what kind of damage, like, residual damage could have been done by the Army of Darkness storyline.
Right.
Could it have set off another?
Yeah.
Could there be 18 different versions of this cabin in the woods, so to speak?
The Evil Dead multiverse.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, shoot, they're putting a multiverse in everything now.
Yeah.
What was the one we came out with? Like, we came up with a really weird one last year or something.
Yeah, I remember we had connected all these like completely random things.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was.
Well, I know, like, even like, look, they have the View Askew verse, the Kevin Smith movies. There's the Adam Sandler ones. So I mean, they're people are like all up, and so it's like you can connect anything now. I mean, look, Tim connected Poltergeist and City Slickers into one universe. So, I mean, anything can happen now, Now people are like rifling back. Did he say that? Did he actually say that?
And we typically find a way to incorporate Planes, Trains, and Automobiles or Little House on the Prairie at some point to anything we talk about. So there you go.
Yeah. And Tim and I've been quoting that same line for Tim. Everything we've done, I've been like, hey, we're saving money already. We're a pretty good team.
Yeah.
But I've modified it to what it is. Like, because one of these days, I think what we'll have to do is we'll have to, once again, to our amazing pod buddies, Kim and Ket, put a pin in this one, because I think when we do our Halloween Horror Nights preview episode, because we're planning to go, and so we'll do the we booked our things, but that's a story in itself. But I think I used it twice during that already, when I'm like, so we have to remember those stories, kind of put a pin in those to go over that when we do our preview, because finally they're starting to announce stuff, so we'll have our thing, and we'll do our preview trip, and then we'll do a post trip one. But we'll definitely, I'm already been plotting doing a spreadsheet to get it prepped for when we do our preview. I mean, at this rate, it might be a day before we leave. I don't know.
They're so slow on announcing the houses.
So slow. I mean, we're at this point. I think we knew the entire event.
I did see a new map come out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it had the newest map I saw. Of course, the announced houses we have Beetlejuice. We've announced all the IP houses: Beetlejuice, Haunting of Hill House, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Bride of Frankenstein Lives. That's the 4 IPs. The latest map I saw had.
Oh, you're right. I see it right here now. Yeah.
Had 6 originals. So the 4 IPs that have been announced, and then 6 originals.
Right, and and if you notice what they did, they took out Creepshow, but they added the Shutter one that
the Shutter one. Yeah.
Tony from Ghost Girl Greetings and she told me about. So yeah, they have actually. Wow. So they have Seek and Destroy Eddie Zone. I don't know what that is. Oh, Eddie was an old character, I think.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a big emphasis on the old characters because it's the anniversary.
But look at that Shutter. Can you even imagine? Oh my God, what a Shutter Zone would look like. I can't. What? So many possibilities. And you know where it is? It's where I think it's where the Chucky one was when we went last time.
It's gonna be fun, yeah.
You know, in that first thing when you make the right and you go in. Remember that's where Josh got so excited. Remember because he saw all the different toys running around and everything. But it says there's another original there in place of what Creepshow was listed. So maybe the Shutter will have Creepshow. Imagine it's like a Joe Bob thing. Oh my God, there's got to be something with Joe Bob.
Oh my God, that would be.
You
so
got to
cool.
have some kind of Joe Bob character there.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Oh, and they actually named the do you see it's not that according to this speculation map, it's not the that musical group we saw. It's called Carnival of Carnage type magic show. So it's a magic show.
Ooh, now that could be fun.
I think we might have to see that.
That looks cool. I wish it was Bill and Ted, but oh well. You can't have everything.
Yeah. But I mean, you look at it though. I'm still surprised that did not come back in some capacity. But if you look at it so far, it's yeah, you're right. The 4 properties have been announced, but you still have the well, and I swear to God, I think even though they didn't officially announce it, I kind of thought like they already announced the Puppet Theater one. And they just didn't say anything about it. But anyway, we're getting way off topic, but we'll definitely address this in our preview episode for this. Hopefully we'll have all the facts though by that point. But it should be really fun. We're looking forward to the trip, and this time I have to not lose my my selfie stick that helps me see over crowds, because that's really what I use. I am such a person that hates those selfie sticks, but I use it only because for my own sanity. I'm not a tall person, so I need it to literally I hold it up and walk over so if I can see it. Otherwise, I'm standing. You're literally gonna get video of the person's head and back. So I despise the selfie stick. Although this one I will only use for these kind of things.
But you don't use it for selfies. You're using it as an extension to your.
I'm literally using it as like a
pictures.
Like I think I've used it for an actual selfie once. I remember I had lost it in the house that nearly destroyed the entire trip. I think for us last. Stupid Seeds of Extinction. Oh my God! Yeah, I lost the selfie stick on the first house in there, but I had replaced it. It was only $6 anyway. But I only use it for if I'm doing like actually I've used it the only time ever is for Civil War, like videos, not even a selfie picture. It's a video.
We got to do more videos when we're down there too, though.
That's what I was gonna. Yeah, and that's what I was gonna get to. I was gonna use that for some videos this year, just because it's easier. Because being short, I also don't have a long arm, so I need it if Tim and I are gonna be in the shot.
Yeah.
So but yeah, we'll do more videos. I'm not bringing my real video camera this year. It's not when I have spent all this money on the new iPhone to get the better camera and video. What am I? I'm not going to lug around that my camcorder.
See, we need to post those on like our YouTube site and stuff. Get some traffic going there.
We'll definitely. And this time I'm going to be much more prepped because it'll be fun, especially because we'll have to get Josh and Anna's excitement of it.
Oh yeah,
we'll have
that'll
to
be fun.
Get their little. We should do like almost a review of every house when we come out. Just take a 2-second thing and
that would be fun. You guys would like that.
Yeah.
All right, Brian. So what did we do for our beer pairing for Army of Darkness and Evil Dead?
So I figured I had to definitely lean towards the original 3 in this. And, since it was Army of Darkness, I did find one called from Odd 13 Brewing Incorporated in Lafayette, Colorado, and it's Army of Dankness. Fortunately, I did not get much of a description, but I do love this the description of the beer itself, even though it's not a great description. Like, it is very short. It's just IPA brewed with spruce tips and vanilla, which means it'll probably be a fantastic terms of pininess with the IPA.
Oh yeah.
But with now a hint of vanilla too, there's probably a little hint of sweetness. So it's probably like, if they did this right, this could be one hell of a beer. And it's only 7%. So it's, I say, but we've had IPAs that are 8 and 9. I've had, so
yeah.
When they're this strong. So, but I still think this one would be a good one. I definitely track this down and try this one. This sounds kind of right up my alley there.
All right, well, let's get to our rankings, because this is going to be we came close, Brian.
You're right. You're off a little bit.
Yeah, I did a little bit of a switcheroo, and I will have to say, before we even go into this, there's not a bad movie on this list. And
no. These
are always the hardest to rank, because one is obviously going to be on the bottom, and you're going to go, well, why is that on the bottom? And it's not because it's a bad movie. It's because in this list, there's only 4 movies. Something has to be in 4th place.
Yeah,
something has to be in 3rd place.
We're not going to give a tie for 3rd.
So
either.
So it is what it is. But just know from the bottom of my heart, I love each and every one of these movies. They're all fantastic in their own way, and the ranking is just because we have to put them in an order. But I would highly recommend any one of these without hesitation. And if you told me, with the exception of the remake, but if you told me, hey Tim, we're going to watch Evil Dead 2, or Army of Darkness, I'm there. I'm, no questions asked. I'll sit down and watch it with you. So we'll discuss these, Brian. We'll just kick it off, I guess. Let's start at the bottom this time. Yeah. So we both decided that Evil Dead 2013, the remake, or whatever you want to call it, that was on our bottom. Now, Brian, for me personally, the reason I ranked it at the bottom is because there's no Ash, so I just don't consider it a real Evil Dead movie. I love the nods to the fans. I love the nods to the original. I thought they did a good job making it very different premise, but still keeping a lot of homages to the original movie. And I thought they did a great job with the horror. Like I said, there's some really, really great creepy scenes in this movie that are, if you're a horror fan, you need to see this movie. It has some really, really good stuff in it. It's just, from a franchise perspective, it's so outside of what Evil Dead is to me that it has to be on the bottom. There's no other spot it can be put into. Yeah, no, I agree. Same thing. And I'll even say, go this way. If the original 3 Evil Deads, 1, 2, and Army of Darkness didn't exist, this could be like one of my like a top horror films. I think it just, unfortunately, it came with the stigma of knowing what it was, Right. And those movies are always hard because you go into it and sometimes it delivers, sometimes it kind of disappoints. Wrong turn. And so so it's like I kind of knew going in this was almost always going to be number 4 just for that reason, because like you said, it's an Evil Dead movie, but it's not an Evil Dead movie. Without Ash, there's something missing, so it almost has to be separate. Like, I almost think we should have almost just automatically left it out of the rankings and just ranked the first 3 at some level, because I don't think it ever had a chance. No, it didn't. No fault of its own, just never had a chance to be any higher than where it was because of what it was. Yeah. That said, I still think it's a great horror movie. Yeah. Like, as horror movies go, it has everything I like in a horror movie. So, as a bit, like, if you want to rank it against, it's hard to just compare it against the other Evil Deads, but like if you want to rank it against other horror movies or other remakes, rank it against other remakes. It's probably you know what? That's a good idea. Maybe we should do. Oh my God, how great would that be to be like this mega scare battle of all the big remakes? I would like to do. Yeah, here's an interesting idea too, Brian. What if we did? I don't know when we're going to do it, but what if we did our top 10 horror remakes? Oh, and then we can explain why we think it needs inclusion on that list. That would be neat. I think that'd be cool. Yeah. We have to figure out the rules of what constitutes, a remake. But
yeah, and I think we should do like maybe like some kind of thing like next year for March Madness or something. Do one of those like horror pools.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, like a horror icons pools.
Yeah, oh yeah, that would be cool. But so I think we're in agreement pretty much for the same reason.
Yeah.
Of Forbidden, not for a fault of its own. For the movie, we're literally ranking these rankings for the franchises have that little caveat of a rank. You know, it has where its place in the franchises too.
Yeah.
Connotation. So of course, it automatically starts at a major disadvantage for that. But again, like Tim said, something's got to be for.
Yeah. Now this one hurts. This one pains me so bad because I've got Army of Darkness at number 3, and you don't know how bad that hurts me to do that because there is no way in any way, shape, or form that Army of Darkness deserves to be number 3 of anything. But for this franchise, you have to remember, I'm judging it on as a horror fan. As much as I love this movie, absolutely loved it. Watched it countless times in high school and college. Quoted it endlessly. Had several copies of it on DVD. As much as I love this movie, it's very light on the horror and very heavy on action comedy. I've seen it even listed without the horror genre tag on it before. That's how out of the horror realm it is. So when I'm looking at the Evil Dead franchise as a horror fan for a horror podcast, Army of Darkness has to go with the number 3 slot. Not because I don't love the movie. I absolutely love the movie. I think it's the most fun version of Ash we've ever had. But as a horror film, it's too far to the comedic side to rank higher in the list.
Yeah, and the same thing. I mean, pretty much for the same reasons. Is like as much as I love this movie, and I think I've come to love it more and more over the years. Like every time I see it, I think I like it more. But still, it's like you said. I mean, we're a horror podcast. Not that we've ever not talked about our other likes and other genres of film, but if you're ranking it in terms of. We're trying to rank a franchise here as a horror franchise. It almost is like, it's almost kind of like so different tonally than the first that it kind of feels like a standalone, like we've said. So it kind of has to go 3 just for that reason. Now, in terms of and it's so hard to even separate it. Like, I'm wondering, like, if I watched all these, like, in a different order, if I would have felt differently. But since I actually technically watched them in like chronological order, I just can't mentally separate it. So I think it kind of has to go for 3, but again, almost not to any reason other than it was intentionally tonally different. It was supposed to be a big epic comedy fantasy adventure starring a horror character that we know and love.
Right.
But and he developed into much more. Now, granted, I from what I remember from the episodes I saw from the first season, I know the series went back to more the horror roots of it. But yeah, this one was almost like almost like a Monty Python, like in the Holy Grail kind of a thing, but with that in that like this great medieval giant scope comedy fun thing, and it's like, and I will say probably out of all the 4, this is probably the one you'll have the most fun watching. I think, and I think that's pretty universal. I mean, Evil Dead 2, some people may argue, but I mean, I think that this one is like, this one was great in the theater. This was a theater movie. Mm-hmm. The other ones you could easily watch at home and on the big screen and probably still get the same kind of feeling. I think this one was one that was meant to see in a crowded theater. And I remember the crowd loving it.
Yeah, or at least with friends at home. Like, this is a great, Army of Darkness is always a great one to put on at a party or like a gathering or something. I mean, that's one that's like everybody loves. Yeah.
Yeah, this is almost like the Rocky Horror version where people are gonna like shout out lines as they're delivered.
It's so great.
This would be a great movie to do Rocky Horror style. That would be a great revival. Imagine some people just started doing midnight showings of Army of Darkness where they acted it out on stage like Rocky Horror.
That would be great. I would love that.
Yeah.
Now, these next 2, I'm just going to talk about them both because I have to explain. So, I had The Evil Dead as number 2, and I had Evil Dead 2 as my number 1 pick. And this is my reason why. The first reason is just familiarity. I've seen Evil Dead 2 probably twice as much as I've seen Evil Dead, or The Evil Dead, I should say. And so I'm just more familiar, and familiarity breeds, attachment. So I've seen Evil Dead 2 so many more times than The Evil Dead that kind of endears it to me more. From a pure horror perspective, The Evil Dead is a much scarier movie. It's much more in the horror vein. Evil Dead 2 kind of starts gearing more towards the comedy, especially as the film goes on and the Ash character starts to develop a little bit more. But I think Evil Dead 2 just strikes that perfect balance between horror and comedy. The Evil Dead is a little too far to the horror side. I won't say too far because I love it, but it's more to the horror side. Army of Darkness is more to the comedy side. Evil Dead 2 kind of sits in the middle. I think that's why it's a perfect blend. It kind of fixes some of the deficiencies of the Ash character from the Evil Dead in terms of what he later became. So you start seeing his development there. That's another reason I put it in my number 1 spot. But I will say, having watched Evil Dead 1 for the podcast, I gained a new appreciation for it. I had always seen it as kind of, Evil Dead 2 is my favorite. And yeah, I've seen the Evil Dead, but Evil Dead 2 is my favorite. Going back, I really gained a new appreciation for Evil Dead 1. Like a genuinely new appreciation to the point where I struggled with this ranking. That's saying something. I mean, I really, really, really enjoyed it for this retrospective. So these two, ask me on a different day, maybe I'll flop them around. I don't know, but I had to put Evil Dead 2 just because I've seen it more.
And so me, it's funny. There's some similarities to why that we chose what we did, but mine actually I have it reversed. I have Evil Dead 2 as number 2 and The Evil Dead as number 1. And one of the reasons why is now I love both of these a lot. And it's like probably thing is I probably overall, because I remember Evil Dead 2 at one point was on cable like daily, and I remember I think I used to watch it all the time, especially because I remember I used to always laugh at the eyeball going in the mouth because it was one of the few eyeball scenes that I could actually didn't bother me, But here's the thing. So when I had seen Evil Dead, like I said, I think back on cable years before, but then I probably it didn't register as much as it did once I discovered it again with my friend Paul while we were going to film school. And so through different, as I was going to film school and learning different film techniques and filmmaking, Paul was kind of telling me a lot of the stuff that he knew, because he knew a lot about the Evil Dead. And so he was telling me all about this stuff. So while I'm learning and I'm seeing basically this stuff, here I am this student filmmaker trying to learn the craft so I could, obviously my career path shifted dramatically, but at one point I thought, maybe I can make movies. I could do this, I could do that. We made some cheesy little, films for projects and stuff too. And I'm like, and then I see this masterclass essentially of a student film at some level, shot on 60. Think about it, it was shot on 60 millimeter originally, it's which is the medium at one point we were using in my film school. So I think I there's just such a respect and admiration for the not only the movie but the process behind it and how they were able to create such a masterpiece and how it became such a legendary film where it could have easily just gone the other way and been some forgotten first attempt at a career by Sam Raimi. Instead, it he became this amazing filmmaker before half the people knew it, but there was a core of people that did, and I was one of them at realizing how just amazing it was what he's done. So I think that always holds a special spot that whether or not who knows, maybe on a couple days I may enjoy the second one more depending on the mood I'm in, but it will never knock. I don't think it could ever knock the place of that one out of the number 1 spot, just because of all the just cool things that he did and all the whole thing about that movie and all the different stories and trivia pieces you hear of it. And and again, it always has the advantage when a franchise is started for me. If it starts a franchise that I love, it tends to be, it already kind of starts in that number one spot, and it's got to get knocked out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
There's very few franchises where I would not rank the number one. And you may be surprised at some of them, but there's a couple movies a couple of franchises where I think not the first one is better. Not horror. Neither one are horror right now, but that I could think of. But and we'll for another day, obviously. But so there's already it's kind of like that first one always has it kind of starts in that number one spot, and the other one's job is to knock it out of that place.
Yeah.
For me, and so while Evil Dead 2 probably came pretty close, it's just there's just too much personal admiration for the first one that kind of keep it there.
All right, well, let's talk about next week. We're going to be back here with our first look at the Puppet Master series. I believe, Brian, we're doing the first 3 Puppet Master movies?
Yes, we're going to do, one. We're doing, I think it's 3, and 4 in terms of the amount of movies. I think the last one I have it scheduled for 4 movies.
Okay.
Because I figured, at one point I was actually toying with just doing the first 2 and then maybe doing... breaking it up a little bit. I think the first 3, 3, 3, and 4 are probably just even it out.
Also, I think the first, if I recall, and again, it's been many years since I've seen these, but as I recall, I believe the first 3 are considered like the core before they really.
And that's another reason.
Before they really
I think they're they're kind of to. They're all one part of one franchise, but
they took a break though. There was a break between films at some point in there, and I think the first 3 are like some of the ones that are the best regarded, and then you started getting to like the later sequels and stuff. But we'll go over it. I don't know because it's been a while since I've seen these. I just watched the original in preparation for next week. I'm about halfway through Puppet Master 2, and I've still got 3 on deck. So we will see how those shake out, and that's gonna be tough ranking 13, 14 movies. That's gonna be interesting.
I really do not know how, because I don't even remember which ones I've seen over the years,
and I've watched them all out of order. I don't know which ones I've seen out of. I didn't. It's not like the ones I have seen that I watched in the proper order. I don't know. This will be crazy.
Right? Yeah. So I think this will be. It's almost relatively a whole clean slate for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, our 200th episode is coming up quickly, guys. So we need your input. If you would, if you're so inclined, you could send us.
Like Cody sent us a great one.
Yeah, she sent us a great one. Yeah,
on point. Man, she's right on.
Send us an audio file to our Gmail account, civilgorepodcast@gmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Facebook, send us an email to our Gmail account. If you don't feel comfortable sending in a voicemail, send us in a letter or something. We'll read it on the air. And also, I'd like to hear some of your favorite moments from our past 200 episodes, because if I get them in on time, maybe I can go back and look for those and add them to the show, kind of like a clip retrospective. So if you have some funny inside jokes or funny sketches or anything like that you remember that you'd like to rehear or something, please let us know, and I'll go back through the archives and try to pull some of those out for our 200th episode, which is...
Yeah. Or any special characters that might
any of that. Because... any kind of request or anything, because that's coming up right after our summer SLAYCATION ends. We're going right to our 200th episode, so that'll be fun.
I think we need to do our own kind of favorite moment things too.
Yeah, I gotta go back.
There's
the
one. I mean, I think it's one of our little sketches that's still just thinking about it cracks me.
We're gonna replay that one. I know exactly which one you're talking about. That one's coming out of the vault, so that's definitely coming.
Yeah, you gotta play that one again, because that was probably we literally wrote that 10 minutes before I think we were gonna record.
Oh, it was good.
And Tim just was so masterful about it, and I think it took us 6 takes for that one line.
Yeah.
That we kept cracking up at. We couldn't even get through it, and it's so stupid on paper. It's not even funny on paper. I don't know what made us hysterical about it, but we'll definitely play that one. Yeah, we should definitely do that. And I know we have a really which I got to touch base on this, but we have a great. I know we're trying to make a big fun interview for that one with somebody. Or some bodies, for that one. We have a couple of other surprises we have kind of in the works for it. And then, you know what I realized? I'm sitting there looking through things, and before we know it too, we need to also start getting ready. Because because I usually have this, usually in the early September days, I have this thing as our horror challenge for this October, and it's our 5th annual one. So I promised it being extra diabolical, and I still gotta stick to that because I think this one has to, and every year we tweak it just a little bit differently to make it something else. And I think I have an idea for this one that'll I think it'll make people's heads spins, but in a good way, in a fun way. Like, it'll really make you like, oh my God, how am I going to do this one? So
Cool.
be kind of fun.
All right, guys. So we will see you back here next week. We'll kick off the Puppet Master series and talk to you soon.
Groovy.